Another property from Stephen King is back in the theaters. And this time, it's It, Chapter 2. So It Chapter 2 is the sequel to the massively successful hit It, which is a book by Stephen King of the same name. And this movie takes place 27 years after the first movie, and it sees the return of the adult versions of the Losers Club back to Derry, Maine, because if you remember in the first movie, they made a blood pact that if Pennywise were to ever return, so would they. So yeah, I never saw the original TV version of It, but I did see the 2017 remake, and I loved it. Get it? I thought the cast of kids were stellar. I thought Andy Muschietti's directing was great. And of course, you can't mention this movie without mentioning the score by Benjamin Wallfish. Like, that score was incredible. My only problem with the first movie was, despite the death of Georgie, which was very shocking and I think set the tone for the rest of the movie, for the most part, the rest of the movie was pretty bloodless. And sure, there were other characters that died, but you didn't really see it. And for the most part, a lot of the losers came out of this situation with Pennywise virtually unscathed. But regardless of that minor gripe, I still loved the first It. So when it was announced that they were coming back to do a part 2, I was super excited. My only thing is I was hoping that coming back for this next installment, especially now that the losers are going to be adults, that the kills and the level of blood would level up as well. And suffice to say, this second movie did not disappoint in that regard. Pennywise has returned with a vengeance, and it was so gratifying to see Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise on screen, and I believe he got way more screen time in this movie than he did in the first movie, and I love that because Bill Skarsgård is great as Pennywise. Like, he absolutely kills it in this role. His voice, his facial expressions, even just the minutia of the drool that comes down his face to like show the voracious nature of his hunger. Basically everything about his performance was just wonderful to watch, and I ate all of it up. The big question with this movie though is, even though the Losers Club is coming back, they're coming back with completely new actors because they're now adults. And so the question is, will these adult actors be as compelling as their child actor counterparts? And hell yes, they were. James McAvoy, who plays Bill, Isaiah Mustafa, who plays Mike, Jessica Chastain, who plays Beverly, Jay Ryan, who plays Ben, Bill Hader, who plays Richie, Jason Ranson, who plays Eddie, and Andy Bean, who plays Stanley, were all perfectly cast for this movie. And you thought that you really jumped into a time machine and saw the adult versions of these kids. And granted, I knew of the casting for this movie long before the movie actually came out, but it wasn't until I sat in the theater actually watching this movie that I was just like, wow, this is some fucking great casting. Like, seeing the chemistry that these actors had together, like, you felt that these were a group of friends that hadn't seen each other for a very long time. And of course, I have to talk about Bill Hader's Richie. Like, Bill Hader was my favorite part of the movie aside from Pennywise. Like, his character was definitely the funniest. He was, in my opinion, the most relatable, and he wasn't just all jokes and laughs. There were a couple key moments in this movie where he felt genuine fear and heartbreak, and I was there with him. Like, there was a moment in the movie, I'm not gonna say what it was, but there was a moment that he breaks down in tears, and I almost shed a tear with him. Like, I loved Bill Hader's performance in this movie. With that said though, not all of the Losers Club really got to shine, I think, as much as they did in the first movie, and some of them were just there. Most notably among them, in my opinion, was Isaiah Mustafa's Mike. Like, aside from the fact that he got them together and got them back to Derry, he didn't really have much to do other than that. And speaking of another character that was just there, and this one really didn't need to be in the movie at all, and so they basically cast Teach Grant as the adult version of Henry Bowers. And if you don't remember Henry Bowers, he was the bully from the first movie. And there was no reason to bring this character back. They already had enough of an antagonist as it is with Pennywise. And you take this character out of the movie and nothing changes. So basically, I was looking at the movie the whole time like, what was his purpose? He served absolutely no purpose in this movie. The only thing that he added to this movie was this movie's runtime. And I think with that, we get to my biggest overall gripe and problem with this movie. Like, overall, I found the cast to be compelling. I thought the directing and the style of this movie was gorgeous, and the score, just like before, rhyme. I thought the score was absolutely spectacular and just as haunting as the first movie. movie. But I feel like overall this is a sequel that wasn't really necessary. This movie was about 2 hours and 50 minutes long, and unlike something like Avengers Endgame, which was 3 hours and 1 minute, I didn't really feel the 3 hours in Avengers Endgame that I did with this movie. Like with this movie, I started to feel its runtime. And I don't know, this is gonna be a weird review because I kind of feel like Two-Face talking about this movie. Like, flip a coin and it'll determine how I feel about this movie. Like I mentioned, on the one hand, from a sheer filmmaking perspective, this movie was excellent. The cast was very well acted. The style, the cinematography, the score, all of that was superb. I was along for the ride pretty much the whole way. But in terms of the story and what this movie was trying to portray, I didn't necessarily understand the point. Like, I don't think anything new was added to the franchise. The characters more or less retreaded a lot of the same waters that they did in the first movie. And this isn't really a spoiler, but after these characters defeated Pennywise and grew up, they left Derry, all with the exception of Mike. And because they left Derry, they pretty much lost their memories of what happened and what they did with Pennywise. There was some echoes of their memories in Derry. So now when they returned to Derry, their memories were slowly returning. And so because of that, there were a lot of flashbacks with each of the characters. Even though it was great to see these child actors return for these flashbacks, I feel like they ultimately added nothing to the story. And there was also a moment in the story with Richie, Bill Hader's character, where they talk about he has this big secret and this big fear. Pennywise kind of teases him saying, "I know your secret, Richie. I know your fear." And they don't really go into it. They kind of gloss over it. We never find out what that secret or what that great fear was. And considering this is a movie all about fear and revealing your fear and facing your fear, I was a little disappointed by that. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like, on the one hand, even though I felt this movie and the story that was presented was overall unnecessary and a bit repetitive, I still loved the execution of it. I don't feel like my issues with the movie took away from my level of enjoyment with this movie. I laughed. Like I mentioned before, I almost shed a tear. I was creeped out by Bill Skarsgård's performance. Like, this movie has so many moments of genuine creep factor that I went to this movie with a friend of mine, and about an hour and a half into the movie, she became so scared that she literally got up and left the movie theater and went home. But despite that, because of my issues for this movie, I can't give it a blockbuster, but I do think overall It Chapter 2 is a hit. I would say people should go see it. And honestly, I think a lot of people will really enjoy this movie and love this movie, quite frankly. But for me personally, I was slightly disappointed, mostly because of the story. And overall, I would say I enjoyed It Chapter 1 better than It Chapter 2, even though I do feel like this movie had better overall scare sequences. But yeah, like I said, this movie review makes me feel like Two-Face. Again, flip a coin and that'll determine how I feel about this movie. Love it or disappointed. Two-Face did say you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And in some people's eyes, this review might make me be a villain in some people's eyes. But again, I still gave it a hit, so I did enjoy it. I still say go see it. But anyway, so It Chapter 2. What did you think about it? Also, which one did you like better? It Chapter 1 or It Chapter 2? Or if you've seen the original TV version, which version do you like better? The original or the remake? Let me know down in the comment section below. Also, if you can, please hit that thumbs up and like this video. It'll really help out the channel. And if this is your first time watching one of my videos, please check out the other videos on my channel. And if you like what you see, please subscribe for more and tell your friends, families, and neighbors about my channel to help me continue to grow. I don't know what that was. And as always, I'll catch you guys next time.